Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and I'm today going to talk to you about Iran's response to Donald Trump and his response to Iran's response. It clearly appears that we are now in a diplomatic ping pong that is going on between the U.S. and Iran for the last, God knows, more than 5 weeks. And this ping pong is going on while the world's economy is being held hostage by both the countries. Both Iran and the United States have effectively blockaded Hormuz. Iran wants to ensure that no supplies from any of the Gulf countries goes to the rest of the world. And the United States is trying to make sure that Iran's oil does not reach anybody else. So that way, the U.S. is blockading Iran and Iran is blockading the rest of the Gulf. And this is obviously resulting in not just high oil prices, but high volatility in the oil markets, and which is then impacting high volatility in the stock markets. A lot of people in the know are obviously making a lot of money, but it is clearly causing lots of problems, as is evident by India's Prime Minister, who has called for austerity in India. For example, the Indian Prime Minister, who is himself going on a tour of 4 or 5 countries in Europe, has requested the Indian citizens not to travel abroad, not to buy foreign goods, not to import gold, stay at home, do not drive a lot, try and take public transport, try to cook less and stuff like that. So essentially austerity measures are being recommended, not just in India, but in many other countries. The supplies are disrupted, 25% of the oil supplies, and cost of it has gone up, etc., etc. So many countries are quite distressed economically as a result of this, including the United States. And let me just show you the gas prices in the US at the moment. For example, California is $6.15. That's more than doubled. I think Washington State is $5.76. New York is $4.59. Delaware, we are the 4th highest at $4.35. As I keep telling you that I did fill up my wife's car on February 28th, the day the war started, and I remember very distinctly I paid $2.93. And now it's $4.35. That's close to $1.40 increase on a 2.9 base. Really, that's 50% increase in the price of gas here in Delaware. So you can see how working class families are going to be distressed. Everybody is distressed. Plus, in the U.S., the summer is a driving season. We drive a lot in the summer. And more and more people are going to be either paying out more. And remember, as I have said this often on this show, that when the price of gas, petrol, diesel, etc. goes up, the cost of transporting anything goes up, which means that oil prices have an inflationary impact on the economy. If the price of gas goes up, it's not just your driving goes up, it's the cost of eggs and milk and everything that you buy, which you're not growing in your own backyard, becomes more expensive. Anyway, so the Donald Trump gave a 1-page proposal to Iran, and the Iranians responded with this. I made an infographic of their response, so take a look at it. What I'm sharing with you is much prettier than, I guess, what they send. They send a multi-page proposal, a multi-page counter-proposal, which basically summarizes everything that they've been talking about. So basically, I divided it into 3 parts, economic and security measures. So they are saying that lift U.S. sanctions immediately. They want many U.S. sanctions to be terminated. They are also saying release frozen Iranian assets. Iranian assets are frozen in many banks in Japan, in South Korea, even in Indian banks. India is a very friendly country with Iran. In spite of that, many of Iran's assets are frozen in Indian banks. Of course, some of it was transferred by Biden to the Qatari banks, but they are still frozen there. So the Iranians are saying, please release our frozen assets. I think they might be close to $100 billion, the frozen assets of Iran. I think what's frozen in Qatari banks are about $6 billion. So the end of U.S. naval blockade, obviously they want the U.S. naval blockade to be eased so that Iranian oil can go. They want a permanent ceasefire and an end to a war. They don't want a temporary solution, and they want guarantees against future U.S.-Israeli attacks. I mean, this is something that even Ukraine was demanding of Russia. And the only way they thought they could get the guarantee that Russia would not attack them again was by becoming members of NATO. But whether they become members of NATO or not, I'm sure Europeans will arm them to the teeth. But who's going to arm Iran to the teeth so that it becomes a deterrent for the U.S. and Israel to attack them in the future? Trump might decide again in October that he would attack Iran if he thinks it will help him in November elections. They modified the nuclear agreement. The United States demands, this is the key problem, I think, for Donald Trump. So the Iranians saying keep Iran's nuclear infrastructure. They're not going to dismantle it. This is a demand that the U.S. and Israel are making, especially the Israelis, that they need to completely eliminate their nuclear infrastructure, their scientific research, their enrichment facilities, etc. All the centrifuges, I guess they want them destroyed or given away or sold. Allow limited uranium enrichment. So the Iranians still want to enrich uranium, maybe for medicinal purposes or commercial purposes. You don't need to go beyond 5% of enrichment for that. They are willing to freeze it for a short period. It's not very clear. Some people have suggested 5 years. Some people have said 12 years. The U.S. is saying permanent or maybe 20 years. And then, of course, there is that 1,000 pounds worth of enriched uranium at 60% enrichment, which some people claim can lead to 11 to 12 bombs. This is Lindsey Graham keeps saying that they can make 11 to 12 dirty bombs with it. My understanding is that you need a uranium enrichment close to 97% to be able to actually make an effective nuclear weapon. They also say Strait of Hormuz under phase. So they're going to steadily, as the U.S. makes its concessions, the Iranians will steadily open the Strait of Hormuz. It's not going to be open on day one. So basically it's saying, okay, you do one thing, then I'll do one thing. You do one thing, then I'll do one thing. So it's like confidence building measures, etc. One interesting question that the Iranians probably posed was that this was in the Wall Street Journal, I think. The Iranians are saying that, look, we are willing to give the enriched uranium to a third party. We will either dilute it or give it to a third party, but we want guarantees that if the United States breaks its promise, then that enriched uranium will be returned to them. Now, that's very funny. Who can they trust? Turkey, China, Russia? I don't know. The idea that a third country will hold it, and if Israel attacks Iran or the US attacks Iran, they will give Iran potentially enriched uranium with which they can make a bomb. I don't know. I don't think, even if the Iranians agree to transfer it to a third country, there may not be a third country willing to take that responsibility. And then finally, they have some regional stability requirement. They say reduce U.S. military presence in the Gulf. They've already destroyed many of U.S. bases which are unlivable. Most of the U.S. soldiers in the region are living in hotels. They want a recognition of Iran's regional security role, and I don't know what that really means. But part of it is Iran's sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. And then they're asking for compensations and reparations for the war damages. That, I don't know, the U.S. is probably going to pass that on to the Gulf countries, and maybe Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar will be kind of responsible to make payments for this, but I don't know why they would agree. So these are the demands that the Iranians have made. Obviously, Donald Trump has simply declared them as unacceptable. He said, this is rubbish, I don't want them, and there's a lot of chatter. Now the question really is, what is Donald Trump going to do? It is very clear why he does not like this. He clearly does not like the idea of Iran having any control over the Strait of Hormuz. It'll appear as if he lost it. Number one, he wants to have complete end to Iran's nuclear program, which means it gives up the enriched uranium, it stops producing anything, and the Israelis are insisting that they should also eliminate their infrastructure itself. which I don't think the Iranians will agree. And then maybe Trump is willing to make some compromises in this area as long as he's given something with which he can tell his supporters here in the US that, look, I'm the only president of the United States who has put an end to Iran's nuclear program. So I don't know why he can't just say that. Trump says all kinds of lies. He can just say, oh, that's it. Like he said that we have obliterated the Iranian nuclear program when we bombed them in June last year. That should have been it. So I don't think that. So Donald Trump really has only three options, which are not all happy options. Number one is to attack Iran again. Israel wants to do that. They want to keep attacking Iran, destroy its infrastructure, kill as many people as possible. Iran just wants to kill, bomb. Now, for Donald Trump, the problem is that, yes, we can do that, but there will be retaliation. Like I said, I just did an analysis just yesterday about the tensions between the information that's coming from the CIA and the information that's coming from the White House. The White House is just parroting whatever Netanyahu is telling them. But the CIA is making independent assessments, and they are saying that the Iranians' ballistic missile capability stockpiles are at 70%, their launches are at 75%, they have thousands and thousands of drones, which means that if the US were to bomb Iran, they will then unleash again on UAE and maybe even Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait and also Israel for that matter. And given the fact that the defensive weapons that the West has at the moment, that interceptors basically are on a low, shall we say, supply level, and it's going to take years apparently to replenish that. It is quite possible that Iran could do a lot of damage to particularly United Arab Emirates, and maybe if they target oil facilities, then we could have a huge crisis which could have a long-term impact on the global economy. And even through the dumb skull of Donald Trump, the man thinks he's very brilliant, but he's kind of stupid in many ways. So it must have by now sunk in his head that blocking the Strait of Hormuz and the oil supply from the Gulf is not a good thing for the world economy and not even good for Americans, even though we don't depend on their oil. The price of oil is a global price, and so that's why oil here, even though America is not dependent on Gulf oil, the price of oil has gone up. I just showed you at the gas pump. It's making Americans very unhappy, and this war is extremely unpopular. Nobody, it's the dumbest of MAGA people. Nobody else believes that this is a good idea at all, at least those who care about America. So it has sunk in his head that this is not a good thing. It impacts the price of oil. It then impacts the price of the stock market goes down, and that looks bad to Donald Trump. So he is not going to probably start a major war if there's any indication that Iran might hit energy sources, because there's a lot of chatter in the pro-Israeli crowd here in the US to hit the Karg Island and eliminate Iran's capacity to refine as well as export oil. So we'll see what happens. So that's one option which does not look very attractive at all. The second option for him is to just let this stew and hope that the pressure of keeping the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz will make Iran make concessions. And like I told you, according to the same CIA report, Iran's economy is reasonably resilient and they can withstand pain for another 122 days, which is 4 months. 4 months we will be, this is May, June, July, August, September. So we're very close to the midterm elections. Can Donald Trump suffer that much pain? Will Americans be happy with oil prices at $6 to $7 for such extended period of time? Some of the states where the prices are high are not just blue states, so he may not worry about Texas, California, and Delaware, which are blue states, but he can, and New York, but he can worry about Florida and Texas, which are his states, and he wouldn't want to basically lose these states. Oklahoma is also red state. So I want to show you what the price of oil is right now. It's about $104. It was down to $101 on May 8th, and it had gone down significantly to about in April 15, mid-April, it had gone down up to 90 per barrel. That was the lowest, and since then all these negotiations are going on and nothing really is happening. So I think we are in a stalemate that is going to hurt both sides. It clearly appears that Iran is not willing to make any compromise, and neither is Donald Trump making any compromises at all. So he still wants to get through negotiations what he did not get through battlefield, which is a complete surrender by Iran. And if Iran is not going to surrender under military bombardment, I don't think it's going to surrender under Twitter bombardment. So I think Donald Trump needs to find a way out of this. And I think part of the solution may happen in Beijing when he meets with Xi Jinping. He's the only man who can pressure Iran. Not Donald Trump, not Netanyahu, not the Gulf countries, not Narendra Modi. The only man on earth who could put some pressure on Iran is Xi Jinping. And what concessions is Donald Trump willing to make to Xi Jinping? Now you must remember that American presidents have often, frequently, regularly, consistently sacrificed American national interest to advance Israeli national interest. So compromises to Iran, which Israel doesn't like, is not possible for Trump. But compromises to China, which compromise American national interest, is something that Trump can do in order to get Israel what it wants. Let me say this again. Making compromises to Iran directly would mean that you're putting America's interests above those of Israel's. And no American politician will do that. They will drown America but save Israel. This is unfortunately the reality of American politics today. But they can drown America by making concessions to China in the hope that China will pressure the Iranians to make some concessions, and we will see what happens, because China buys 90% of Iranian oil, and China perhaps is also supplying some defensive weapons and technology to Iran. So that is where we are. So it is, like I said, if Donald Trump went to Beijing without any forward movement on the deal with Iran, with no resolution, no ceasefire, anything, then the whole meeting on 14th and 15th of May will be consumed by the Iranian issue and the Strait of Hormuz issue. But if the Strait of Hormuz was announced open today because the US and Iranians had agreed on a framework for moving forward, then the US and China could have been discussing other things which are of great importance, which is the trade between the two countries, the tariffs issue, manufacturing of China's manufacturing capacity, Taiwan, the critical minerals, rare earth minerals, magnets, all of that could be discussed. The competition in AI, the US ban on exporting semiconductors to China, and other such issues. There are plenty of issues that these two superpowers need to resolve. They could focus on that, knowing fully well that things are moving in the positive direction with regards to China, but with regards to Iran. But if that doesn't happen, then I think, unfortunately, the Beijing meeting, at the most they're going to meet for 2 hours, one-on-one, and then everything else will be my people meeting your people kind of thing. So you don't want that 2 hours to be entirely consumed by discussing Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to give you an update on. I'll keep an eye on this diplomatic ping pong that is going on. Once again, Iran made its offer through Pakistan, so keeping Pakistan in the loop. Pakistan is still playing a relevant role in the diplomacy, even though the chances of the so-called Islamabad talks and Islamabad accord seem to become more and more remote if this is just going to happen over phone or text. So we will see what happens, and I won't be surprised if the next meeting happens in Beijing and not Islamabad. Anyway, but China has become increasingly more important in the negotiations with Iran. Anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. For those of you who are watching in the United States, I just uploaded a very important conversation with Dave Redlosk, who's running for a seat in the House of Delaware. We discussed not only the issues that are impacting Delaware, but issues of democracy and demographic challenges that are impacting the U.S. So please take a look at that show. Take care. Bye.